are on episode 74 of the Trash Talk Business Podcast, your weekly rendition of all things trash. Whether we're talking the junk removal industry, demolition, deconstruction, Dallas Cowboys, everything trash related is covered here in this situation where we sit down and chat. We record ourselves chatting. We come up with answers. We have solutions. Sometimes we even find problems. As always, I'm Andy Weins, joined by my co-host from DFW itself, Casey Bubba Lawrence. Casey, what are we talking about this week?
Well, Andy, we have a couple of guests today. They're a team out of Florida. I think it's Daytona Beach. Talked to these guys, I want to say about 6 months ago or so. They were pretty fresh into the junk removal business, and they've been doing some really cool stuff. They're very visual and vocal about what they do and how they do it, which is one thing I really like. So let's hear from our guests, and we'll start off with Logan. We have Logan and Kyle. Logan, introduce yourself. What do you do? Why do you do it?
My name is Logan Carnes. I'm one of the co-founders of Junkless Junk Removal, and really the reason that we jumped into junk removal was for, I would assume, which assuming is a bad thing to do, but I would assume the majority of people get into it is to just find an alternative to free themselves from that 9 to 5. And I've always been, interested in business. Used to own a lawn care company like probably about 5 years ago. Got super burnt out, so I'm familiar with the hard work. And I just figured it would be a good thing to finally, jump into it and start working on something for myself again.
Cool. Kyle?
Looks like you have a partner too. Kyle?
Yes, my name's Kyle Marchun. I'm Logan's business partner. We're pretty much brothers. We've been best friends for like 13 or 14 years now, and we moved to Florida from West Virginia during the peak of COVID in 2020. The reason why, a small background about me. I did a little bit of power washing and window cleaning back in West Virginia while I worked at Sheetz, a night shift at Sheetz, which is pretty much like Wawa, those the gas stations. And then before I moved down here, I sold all that equipment, and I pretty much did DoorDash full time since I moved down here from 2020 to from 2020 to 2023. And we got into junk removal business due to, after the
Straight
hurricane.
hustlers.
What is it?
So y'all are straight hustlers is what it sounds like.
Yeah, pretty much. You gotta stay active and proactive, I really enjoy cleaning up the environment and helping the community as much as possible. And when it comes to, trash, I'm really eco-friendly, and I wouldn't say it's my passion, but I honestly do enjoy, helping out the community. So, yeah.
And then, right now, let's get some quick demographic information, geographic. All right. So when did you guys start running?
When or where?
When?
We started unofficially back in October-ish, right into the end of October of 2022. Officially got our LLC established and everything on the 18th of January of this year.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Yeah. And then that sounds like a pretty standard 90-day, ramp up. In 90 days, you can do, 50 to 100 jobs possibly and get that, hey, do I actually want to do this and invest, at least a little bit of money in it, right? You have pretty low risk at that point. All right. And now where are you guys at? It's the two of you. I see you guys have a pretty strong LinkedIn, YouTube video presence. You guys are posting almost daily on the videos. So let's talk about that. As far as, and that's what I want to get into really, because that's one of the things that you guys are doing different than most. And that's what's, I guess, the most interesting. So Is it the two of you? Do you have any other employees? How many trucks are you running? Or is it only the two of you in the one truck?
Yeah, just two of us, and we just have a dump trailer at the moment. We bought that back in November. Which Right Trailers, shout out to them. It was our first trailer that we got, but they have a wide selection, and just us two and one dump trailer.
Okay. And then, all right, so you guys are posting quite a bit. What's the catalyst behind the content?
Really just building that brand recognition. There's so many. My history behind it is, as me and Casey briefly spoke before you got on, I'm, really into music. That's kind of my main thing I want to achieve in life, is being known for music and being a creative and artist. So Ever since I can remember, probably since 2019-ish, I've literally been hardcore on creating content. I've had TikTok accounts get to 100K, and then just me not having a focused vision. Like literally the accounts, like I still have the account, but it's dead.
Mm.
I could post a video and get 100 views on it with 100,000 followers. And so I've always created content, always knew that content is king, and it's just about getting yourself out there. And so I always knew it would play a part. And so the previous years were just I guess, a learning curve to really figure out what we were going to end up eventually doing. And then when we did get started within the junk removal industry, we just got a lot of feedback from other people that were saying to just post, and to document the journey. And so we just took that full on, and pretty much anything we do, whether we're going to the scrap yard, whether we're going to the landfill, whether we're going to buy a new tool at Harbor Freight or something, like we literally just document everything and make content literally about everything.
Okay.
See, I like a little. Oh, sorry, Andy. Let me just say.
Okay. Yeah.
So the one thing I do like about what you're doing is a lot of consumers, right? They are very interested in these random businesses around them and what they actually do on a day-to-day basis. Like they may know what they do, but what's their day like? And we live in a society now where reality TV is everything, right? They have a TV show on being a fucking wife or a husband or maybe both. I don't know what they do now, but the fact that they have this reality thing, it's changed everybody's perspective of, I really want to know what their life is like in some aspect. So by kind of showing what you do on a day-to-day basis, going to the scrapyard, hey guys, this is why we're going here instead of the ladder, or hey, we're buying a new tool because we broke our other one, doing whatever. So I like the storytelling behind the business. I will say there's another person that does it, and I label them more as a content creator than a junk removal business.
Gotcha.
Personally, I think a lot of people would agree with that, but that's only because they have the camera rolling like 24/7, with a lot of just non-relevant bullshit. But yeah, I wanted to say that. I think we're in a society now where storytelling is starting to, it's really a huge part of business, and you see a lot of small businesses doing that as more of a marketing aspect, and I think it really goes a long way.
I want to touch on it as well.
Yeah, please.
Everybody, like businesses, they just want to fucking put a logo up and then post like generic stuff. And I think that's one of the slowest ways to start building your company, because people fall in love with people. So it's going to be way harder to get people to fall in love, trust, and know a logo versus seeing the people that are actually building the company.
And with you guys, do you get a lot of customers that recognize you from your accounts? Because this is where my brain goes, and this is where I'm really open to this, and I want to hear this conversation. Like, I think about my demographic that's hiring me to do the job. Most of them aren't on YouTube watching me, right, create content. And the people that are watching, or even like this podcast, right, our average consumer is not watching this podcast. This podcast is watched by junk mold companies, landscaping companies, people that want to understand business. And even my other content, like Taylor just came in, like a lot of people that watch my scrap content are people that want to understand how businesses work, and they're not buying junk removal from me. So with you guys, do you see it where like people are like, oh yeah, I saw your content and I wanted to hire you, or hey, you walk in, you're like, oh wait, you're the guy that does the thing, or is it completely like what is from a funnel standpoint? I get it, you create content, right, and there may be money in that, right? You're getting paid to create content, and you get enough views and subscribers, enough hours watched, you start monetizing that. That makes sense, right? Do you see that? That people are hiring you because of the content is the question.
I'll touch on it first, and then Kyle can touch on it.
Yeah.
I would say it's been the beginning stages. It was more about just getting people in our community to know and trust us. And so we've gotten plenty of, like, when we go to a lot of networking events, and we are a part of our Daytona Commerce. And so when we go to meetings like that, everybody knows and watches our content, but we're not necessarily getting tons of leads yet from the content. My goal from it was more about just building the brand recognition to become a trusted source in the community. And since then, the past, I'd say month and a half, we have been getting a lot more leads from social media.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. And that's interesting. That's a challenge to people out there, because we've seen it the other way, where people are only creating content because they're trying to sell a course, they're trying to do something for other junk removal companies, or people are going the pure entertainment route. I mean, go back to Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe. People are interested in watching how society works. Like that's interesting. And I like what you said, and this is what, for all our listeners out there, especially those that are against social media, I talked about this last week when I went to a networking event. I now have the luxury, when I walk into a networking event, I never wear a name tag and I never go out and introduce myself to people, because I put the work in on LinkedIn and Facebook, put out a book, whatever. People at networking events are either going to, I've already given them permission and a topic to ask me about, because I've already talked about it. Same with you guys. You're like, oh yeah, you put up a piece of content and go in the scrapyard, for example. Somebody could be like, oh yeah, I watched that thing at the scrapyard, like where'd it come from, blah, blah, blah. And then the next thing is, oh, you have to meet this person, or vice versa. Hey, this person has to meet you and what you've done. And this is I'm reinforcing what you're saying and telling our listeners, when you put the work on social media, in your guys' case, let's call it, 6 months, 8 months now, then at some point, it's not the first month or two, let's say after 6 months of consistency, then people start recognizing you, then they start introducing you, then they start hiring you. This is not a go to fucking post, put 2 generic posts up on Facebook and your phone's gonna be ringing off the hook. Or go to 3 networking events in 1 month and then leave the chamber because you didn't see a return on your investment. Like that is the challenge when it comes to marketing. And I always talk about it's a force. Like you marketing, when I first started, it was like, be all places, all times, for all people. Like, it's like, okay, well, how do you do that? Like, that was like, that's the mountaintop, right? And also say the right fucking thing. And you got to use social media and what you do as your force multiplier. That's what it ultimately comes down to.
I think
someone recently asked me about Coca-Cola, right? They're like, hey, it's easy for Coca-Cola to do all this shit because they have all this money. And I'm like, well, that's not the point of it. I go, the reason they're doing all of the marketing that they do is to stay relevant and to stay off the tip of everybody's tongue. Yeah. It's not because they have the money to do it. It's because they know how to build a household brand. And now, if you go into any store and buy that Coca-Cola, are they able to truly track that 1 can of Coke you bought at a QT from a billboard down the street? Probably not. But it's the brand of awareness. It's seeing their trucks and delivery vans, their billboards, their banners, their signs, their promo items, right? They are truly everywhere at all times for everybody. And now that they have Coke Zero, I mean, you know what it is, right? So having that kind of brand recognition on a big scale like that, I hate when people say, oh, it's easy because they have all this money. No, it's actually the hardest thing, I think. It's harder when you're at that size to stay the most relevant soft drink in the world, right? Mm-hmm. So in junk removal, this is the biggest thing I see, especially from my view where I'm at locally. I see desperation hits and they go straight to social media. They do a quick live or a quick video and post. Oh shit, I don't have business. I don't have jobs. Damn it. Social media doesn't work. See, they don't understand the consistency, the foundation you have to bring in the very beginning and start building that. And now it's a force to be reckoned with, really, because hell, you're at 8 months, right? Look at 10 more. Look at 18 months. Yep. Where your social media, where your presence is going to be from just your videos, your content or whatever. But the fact that you're backing it up, I heard you say something about the chamber, that you're in a chamber. The fact that you have an in-person interaction on top of that shit, that's exactly the way you're supposed to do it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people want to do one or the other. Oh, I always go out and I meet people. Great. Then I go to your website and I'm like, I don't know what you do. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Or I go to your Facebook and it's like 10 followers. Hey, I get it. Maybe you're not in tune with, I want a bunch of people following me. It's not that. It's, you need to be relevant. So when people see you and then they go to your social media, like, holy shit, these people have 10,000 followers. They must be doing something right. I kind of want to know more. It sparks that interest. Hell, Andy, you walk into a room and I used to joke about this, but it's fucking true. And Andy probably, stands on this podium, but when he's in a room, he's not just the tallest, he's the fucking loudest. And it's not always, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. We went to JunkCon, right, in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it was packed the first night in this little lobby area, right? I couldn't tell you who was there, but I knew Andy was there. Obviously, I was there with him, but you saw and you heard that motherfucker, right? In a crowd of people were like, I don't know who that is, but I want to know because he's fucking loud. And they go over to them. Oh, you're with fucking podcast, whatever. Now you have that conversation. He literally stands out above the crowd, but also his voice stands out.
Agreed. And with when it comes to, that's what people don't understand about SEO. And obviously, when I started the business with my partner Kyle here, we didn't really, SEO wasn't like a thing we were like super privy on. But just listening to all these podcasts and learning about it, and you even had a couple SEO experts. And just to quickly note, when you guys had Height Digital on with Demi, we actually are using them to do Google ads, and they built our full website. If you do want to check that out,
Nice.
Shout out.
Definitely fuck with them. They're a great company. But building that whole SEO presence, just putting keywords in, like you don't necessarily have to put your phone number and, hey, call me today on every single post. You can just say, hey, we're serving the community in Daytona Beach. Hey, we're going to a meeting with the Daytona Beach Commerce today, and we wanted to bring you along with us, and just put that as the description. But when you're putting Daytona Beach Commerce, we're doing junk removal, whatever, over time, when people just type in junk removal in Daytona or whatever area you're in, your videos underneath the Google My Business and sponsored posts are going to start showing up, and they're going to be like, a junk removal video or whatever. They click on it, then they can instantly fall in love with that person.
So you're dropping your videos on your Google My Business, like picture posting.
Some of them, but what I mean is once you scroll past that, our videos will literally pop up as SEO of like Junkless junk removal, and then it'll be like a TikTok link, like just like a video that we recently posted and shit like that.
That's interesting. Oh, I like that. So, other thing, real quick before we forget, you did a shout out to our girl Demi Smith over there. Is it Hype? Is that it? Hype. That's what I thought. Yeah, Hype Digital, Hype Marketing, whatever. We had her on a while back. We met her at JunkCon. So shout out to JunkCon. Not doing it this year, which is interesting because I've had a couple people approach me recently about doing a junk removal convention. More on that, maybe. We don't know. Also, shout out Jobber. Love fucking Jobber. If we mention Jobber pays me to say nice things about them. I'd have done it for free because I did it for free for a long time. And then they're like, hey, you should get the hookup. And they don't pay me straight up. They only pay me when you go to gogetjobber.com/camo crew and you set up and have an account. Also, random shout out. This is a first. Algiris, creating healthier futures. So we cleaned out a storage locker recently and got an entire pallet of old merch. And I took 24. I am notorious for losing coffee cups, losing lids. I unpacked a box this weekend from my house that I moved into like 3 months ago. I'm still unpacking boxes slowly. 14 lids, like Yeti lids, like, like nice coffee cup lids where their coffee cup is. Yeah, no fucking clue.
Sliding ones.
Here's the deal. I do know now that I have 24 of these, and so far I haven't lost any of them. And the other thing is I don't like stainless steel coffee cups. However, I haven't broke one yet. It has a lid, and I have 24 of them, which means I can lose coffee cups and or lids and still have lids and coffee cups. So shout out there. Again, shameless plug. Casey, anything on your hat today?
Where's the meat?
No, correct. Oh, Texas First Rentals. Shout out. Need a scissors lift in Texas? Texas First Rentals. Your best shot for rentals. I have no clue. I don't know if Casey paid for that hat, got it for free.
Dozers,
there you go.
Anything really. Yeah.
And shout out junk removal.
There you go.
Yeah,
Junkless junk removal.
Gotcha.
All right, there. Okay, now we got all our whatever. Paid all the bills.
Well, here's
good.
another question.
Oh,
another question.
I had an answer. No big deal. Whatever.
Hold your shirt up real quick again.
Yeah.
All right. In all due respect, where the fuck did you get that logo?
Good question.
Where does that come from, right?
Hold on. With respect to the people listening at home, it is
yes.
I'm not going to ask you what it is because I'm going to describe it. It is a bull yak, Rocky Balboa fighting stance with boxing gloves creature, and it says Junkless junk removal. It makes no sense. However, it stands out. So there, for those listening, now we've described it. So now you can explain what the hell it's all about and why.
You want to go for it, Kyle?
So below, so our slogan, I guess you could say, is like knocking the junk out of your life. So we had that, and so that's why when it comes to the bull with the boxing gloves, every time that, when we show up to a job, we're just there to knock it out. So that's how it comes into play.
And then
But
as
yeah,
far as
Logan actually created it from, I forgot the website, but he can tell you more about it.
it's called a Brand Crowd, and they have a bunch of like pre-made logos that you can like adjust and change colors and everything, and then you can buy out the logo by just paying $5 a month for 2 years, so it ends up coming out to $120. But you own the outlet, you own the logo outright, and yeah, it was really like as soon as I saw that logo, because I've seen so many other companies use like a mascot, and just learning so much from JRA, like all of their companies, like the Junk Doctors, like all these different ones, they're like mascots, So I wanted, as soon as I saw the bull, it was really a challenge of determining if I wanted to use a mascot or if we wanted to use like more of like a clean, like environmental style logo, kind of like waste management or something. And once we, really just studied the bull and looked at it, and then we came up with that slogan, we just thought of the future. And when we have this giant logo on our fully wrapped trucks and box trucks and whatever going down the street, people are going to notice us for sure.
I like it. All right. Well, this actually that question leads to an answer I had earlier, because this episode is very much about marketing at this point, and what you're doing with the Chamber of Commerce. What I heard in marketing years ago that has stuck with me, and it really it's the default azimuth, the pinnacle I want to achieve within our business. It's really simple: is to be the only choice.
Yep.
And so, like for us with Camo Crew, right? There's no other company that does all the things we do the way we do them, right? Everything from being a local veteran-owned company, right? So now every fucking franchise, right? They're not an option, right? They can't compete with me there. Not veterans, they can't compete with me there. And then what we do from an environmental responsibility standpoint with how we process our material here, nobody else can compete with me there. So then my opportunity is to educate everybody, bring them to our facility, because nobody else does what we do. Right? You talked about that on the front end. It's like, yeah, we do junk removal. However, we're the only choice for these reasons. And that's why I've said for years, I don't have competition. I have other people that do similar things. If you want to hire a local company that supports veterans and keeps their material out of the landfill, I'm the only choice. And should another company do all those three things, I'm going to find another differentiator and I'm going to double down on that. Because when you're a franchise, you can't say, like you guys, you don't have an origin story. The franchisee is like, oh yeah, I paid $50,000 and I went to 2 weeks of training and here's the color palette I use. Right? You guys have this origin story of we moved from West Virginia. We were hustlers. We did it. We got our LLC. We spent our $120 and got a logo. Look at how far we've come. Like people buy into that versus generic run-of-the-mill, big blue, name that fucking bullshit franchise where there is no origin story. There's no loyalty to the people. They might have brand loyalty, right? There's no
COVID
people
origin
loyalty.
Story too.
What's that?
So they have a COVID origin story. So that's another big thing. I want you to really,
COVID baby.
I want you to look at that because in real estate, you saw a lot of people go into real estate during COVID and after because of the getting was good. But they're not really doing very great right now.
Not so much.
A lot of them are getting side hustles or trying to pick up some slack here and there. Also, a lot of corporate world people realized during COVID because the people in charge, I don't know how it went down, but for some reason, some idiot who thought he was a doctor decided everybody should just be locked down and shut down the entire economy. And people started realizing they were just numbers on a list in these giant corporations, and they got sick and tired of it. So COVID really brought the best out of some people. They're like, fuck that. I still gotta take care of my family. I still gotta take care of my future. So the biggest person you can really put your money on is yourself. And they did it. That's what y'all are doing. I mean, hell, you moved from West Virginia to be in a better state, which is Florida, which is number 2 in the world, next to, behind Texas, of course. But, it's one of those things, man. Like you went after something. You said, look, I'm not going to let anything kind of hold me back. I'm in charge of my future. And that's something you need to share more of. You need to be like, hey, look, this is where we started. This is how we started. And keep carrying that with you because a lot of people love that shit. Eat it up.
Agreed. And like just something for so many people out there that make excuses. Like I made a free PDF for people to learn how they can get started, like literally for free by literally door knocking, cold calling, emails, networking events, all these free things. And even when we started, we didn't even have a truck, and we went after like 2 weeks of being for sure we're going to do this. We went and got approved for $0 down on our trailer. Still didn't even have a truck. Like literally, I had to borrow my my old employee. They literally let me borrow the truck to drive 2 hours to go pick up the dump trailer. They were awesome people. And that's literally what started it. And then from there, rented a U-Haul every time we got jobs. Like we would get the jobs lined up, rent the U-Haul, knock them out by, getting it and pulling the dump trailer around. So it's like we didn't use not having a truck or not having a trailer as an excuse, because even if we wouldn't have got the trailer, I knew all it takes is getting a U-Haul box truck. And we still do that today on big jobs. Like we know we can fit everything in a 26-footer. I'd rather take one load to the dump than take 6 back and forth, even if it'll be easier to unload it.
So I do want to jump into this because I do watch some of your content, and one piece of content got me super fucking twitchy.
Gotcha.
And that's actually the catalyst behind why I wanted to reach out to you guys, because I wanted so bad to dislike you guys and be like, yep, these fucking punks, they have no clue what they're doing. They're destroying the environment. Fuck them. Right? And then I got over my own shit and I was like, hold on, right? Like you can't hold people accountable for shit they don't know. And so this is the part of the conversation I'm really interested in having, because this is a complete philosophy difference between the way you guys do things and the way that I do things. And I grew up doing this, right? Full transparency. My origin story started when I was 5 years old, taking apart lock sets and faucets in my driveway with my dad, thinking using a screwdriver was like the coolest thing ever.
Real quick, I've literally watched every single episode, just so you know.
Of what? 100%. Oh yeah, okay. So you know the origin story. Okay. So
100%.
this is where I get twitchy, right? I do like that you mentioned scrapyard, and I have seen that you've gone to scrapyards. However, or whatever, transitional word. All right, there's a video where you put the TV in the trailer and you immediately smashed it. And then you put it on LinkedIn. And then I went to the EPA's website and copy and pasted why that's not a good idea. And then I dropped it in on the comments, because that's like educating people is the opportunity here. So why'd you fucking do it? Like, that's the question. Like, why'd you do it?
So real quick, have y'all seen the movie Men in Black?
Yes.
Right? There's a part where he kicks the dumpster and these little roaches all start rolling everywhere. And he steps on one of the little roaches and that big giant monster feels it.
Yeah.
That's literally what this is.
Yeah.
Like a TV being smashed in fucking Florida, and Andy's like, oh.
100%. People get real, like, because so many people, if you read the comment sections of, I don't know, you don't have an Instagram, but on Instagram and TikTok, people are commenting in those. It's just a way to trigger people and to just build that brand recognition. So people are in there saying, you could have gave that away to me, or just all these different things that you could have donated it, and they don't even think that it's a broken TV. That's why the people wanted it gone in the first place. But yeah, it's really just the wow factor, just like
But and there's my challenge though, as junk removal companies, right? We have to follow the EPA's guidance and also the DNR. And I don't know what the rules are in Florida. Most states you can't put TVs in the landfill.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I don't, if you guys can, like, that's a shit policy at the state level or at the county level or at whatever level they allow TVs to go to the landfill. Not great, Bob. Right? Not great.
So we are getting into more e-waste, and our scrap metal recycler does take, e-waste too. So that video, pretty much the majority of that whole TV was recycled as well.
I get that, but breaking the vacuum tube
after releasing
the
chemicals.
That's it. What's that?
That's what I was going to ask. So what? I guess I haven't done enough research. What chemicals are in a TV that makes it bad? I guess.
Yep, I will. Well, so the first
thing, TVs.
Yep, that's right. I was going to Google it, so I'm not guessing. The first thing is, what do you call it? It's leaded glass.
Leaded glass.
So
gotcha.
Leaded glass. So the back of the TV, those old tube TVs, is leaded glass. I'm just going to hold on. Broken tube.
Yeah,
I'm Googling it.
Is that what like causes like
phosphorus,
the gas? Word.
Correct. And so it's vacuum sealed gas within it, and when you hit it, the gas is released. And that's what I want to look up. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Where are you today, Casey? Well, I'll put a little filibuster.
I'm under a great big oak tree for some shade. I left a networking meeting 9 to 10 I had this morning, and a buddy of mine was to let me use his studio to do the podcast. But then he was like, "Dude, I forgot. I already booked an open house here, so it's gonna be flooded with people." And part of the attraction was his studio. So I'm like, "So you're saying you want everybody to be on the podcast?" And he's like, No, I just can't. I can't let you do it." So I decided to drive down the street, park under a tree, and yeah, man. So I got the list. Led, you want to go in? You and me? You have
no, go ahead. Great. And that, so we use the word gas. There's no gas. It's a vacuum. Whatever. Go ahead.
They can material.
Yes.
So CRT TVs contain toxic materials such as lead, cadmium, barium, and fluorescent powders, which can be released if recycling of CRTs is not appropriate in a responsible manner. Now, you can go to the National Institutes of Health.gov because anything with the gov behind it, you can probably trust. And it'll show you the exposure to hazardous substances in cathode ray tube TVs.
There you go.
So pretty much, it's just don't read that shit and you'll die.
Correct. Cadmium, barium, fluorescent powders, and lead. It's no different than, so I used to have a rage room, and people were always like, "Oh, why don't you let us break tube TVs?" I'm like, "Because you're in a confined space, and we don't want you breathing that shit in. It's no different than fluorescent bulbs for your lights, right? You don't want to be breathing that shit in." And so that's it, right? And I get what you're saying, like, oh, hey, like by the time we got into the next, right, and I'm recycling a bunch of stuff. However, breaking it, like you put yourself at danger, Kyle, by doing it in the trailer. And also I get it, right? Like my whole question was like, and why'd you do that? Like, what was the point? And if it's only to create content, like that's a bullshit reason, right? That's like, why'd you randomly punch someone on the side of the road? Well, because it was good content. Well, it's like, well, that was immorally, ethically, illegal, right? Like that's where I get twitchy because I get it. Great content, great stories. And yet my whole thing and the whole reason I started this podcast was not at the expense of the environment. Our job as first line recyclers, for all intents and purposes, is to display professionalism in all that we do and also educate the public. And there's a lot of junk removal companies, especially, I've said about this, especially down south, because the rules and regulations are laxed, landfill rates are low. It's just like you said,
resources too.
It's simpler for you to be like, yeah, I'm gonna get a 24-foot U-Haul truck. I can fit about 40 cubic yards in there, and I'm just gonna take it right to the landfill because it's $45 a ton. And I hook up fucking Larry with a 12-pack, and my 2-ton turns into 1. Whatever, right? Like there's a way to do this, and yet the challenge I see is that it works when it's you two. It doesn't work when all of a sudden you have other employees. And I know that firsthand because I had employees one time do a job. They ran out of space. So they started filling a dumpster on the same parking lot that a construction company was using so they could finish the job. Never said shit to me. And then like 3 days later, someone like our customer called and was like, hey, like a bunch of stuff that was in our basement ended up in our neighbor's dumpster. Like what the fuck? Right?
See, I had a similar. We did a huge clean out of an antique village thrift shop or whatever they call it, an antique mall. And in the upper space, they had 1,000. I'm not even kidding. 1,000 of these 6-foot long light bulbs. What are they called?
Fluorescent bulbs.
They go in the
fluorescent tubes.
And fluorescent tubes. Well, here's the deal. It was a semi-city referral job, and they were like, okay, make sure you have a way to dispose of those because it's poisonous or whatever. I said, no problem. And then I show up to a job. I'm like, hey, where are all those light bulbs? And they're like, oh, yeah, they're in the trailer. They were just tossing them in the trailer. 1,000 of those light bulbs just shattering. It was like a big puff of just kill you kind of dust in the trailer right there in the middle of a fucking city. Like
kill you dust. Hold on. There you go. A whole trailer of kill you dust.
Yeah. And it wasn't even like they weren't even trying to hide it. It's because honestly, it was my fault. They did not know the reason why we needed to take care of it in a different way. Yep. They just figured safe. Like, oh, it's bad for you. No, straight up, it's fucking bad for you. And they were being very irresponsible due to the lack of information I was passing to them. So if the wrong person were to see that, right, that could have shut me down. I mean, straight up, it really could have shut me down. As small as it could have, been seen as, it also could have been seen huge.
And when
yeah,
you
one
start getting
TV,
into once you start getting into commercial jobs, local government, and then federal government,
yeah,
if you're not tight in and you don't do things responsibly, you never can get those jobs. And if you get blacklisted once, you're done. I mean,
Oh,
Casey
man.
talks about that job with that all that fucking hot pipe he picked up that had all radiation in it, right? It's like
Yeah.
he was doing
Yeah.
things right. He did everything right, and then when he got to this point of like, oh shit, right? Because he was aware, because he was doing the right thing from the word go. He was taking that pipe to the scrapyard, and they had the right detectors, right? If you were not like, I know plenty of guys that are like, oh yeah, I just had a local scrapper, pick up half my load for me, and got it done for free because he picked it up. It's like, well, that's great
Mhm.
until something comes out the accident of his truck, and he says, oh, it's your job site, and it comes back to your customer, and then your customer puts a review on Facebook like, hey, these guys are horrible, irresponsible, and you're going to hire them, and they're going to hire somebody else out. Or whatever. Like, so there's the reason I get twitchy about this shit is I did almost all of it. Everything there is to do wrong, I've done at some point. So this is not like I'm holding. Yeah. I don't. Oh yeah, no. Like no, I'll say on tube TVs, I've never smashed one because I was taught from day one. However, I've had plenty of my guys smash TVs because they were irresponsible, they were lazy, they didn't know, right? And also I know that like one of my competitors one time called me. This was years ago. I had a junk room company up in Minnesota at the time, and one of the competitors called me and said, "Hey, will you be willing to come and clear out our warehouse full of TVs because our guys have just been black bagging and put them in black bags and so like slowly toss them in their dumpster, and eventually their trash company was like, hey, you can't do this." And then they didn't have any resources. So they had scaled and they had like 60, 70 TVs and they had no place to go with them.
Wow.
So they wanted to call us. And this was so like when you don't develop best practices from the word go, it only gets worse once you get more trucks, more trailers, more employees. So when you don't handle it, again, you guys have 100% quality control. You're two guys, one truck, and you're both the owners. As soon as you put a second or a third guy on the road or a second truck on the road, your quality, whatever it is now, will almost always go down.
I will say this.
I want to touch on, before we move on, I want to touch on that.
Yeah.
So I'll ask you, Andy, what about flat screens? And then I'll ask you, Casey, what would you have done? What was the process? Where were all those light bulbs supposed to go?
Well, I'll answer both because that's my lane. So flat screens, absolutely. They're almost made entirely of plastic. So There's different flat screens, right? You can't break plasmas. So plasmas, the older ones are going to be really heavy. They're glass. Yep. Those have gas inside of them. So plasmas, no. But LED, LCD, yeah, you can smash them. There's no advantage to it because they don't make them much smaller. Like a plastic, like your monitors, like I'm looking at monitors here, LED and LCD monitors, like 95% plastic. There's almost nothing to them, right? Second thing, for flush and tubes. So when you take those, obviously to a proper disposal facility, what they have is they have a 55-gallon drum. And I had one of these. I had to rent one of these one time because, again, we cleaned out a big building, like 4,000 light bulbs in this building. Because, again, they just kept filling closets with light bulbs. It was old school. It was a school. And so I learned this because I have a hazardous waste guy that I call. And he basically just showed me how to do it. And then we ended up doing it his practice. So what ends up happening is you get a 55-gallon drum. On the 55-gallon drum, you take the top off and you put this other top on. And what this other top does, it has basically a motor where you slide the light bulbs in and it seals it and it grinds them as they're going in. And also you have to hook a vacuum up to it. So it's constantly sucking the air out of it, running through a HEPA filter. So all those, so you're basically correcting a negative or whatever, create a negative pressure thing. And I'm not a fucking science guy, so don't ask all that shit. But basically the 55-gallon drum is getting all of the glass and the large particulates, and all the small particulates go into a vacuum, and it has a shop vac. And we had to get a whatever, I can't remember what HEPA filter it is, but it's like the super tight one.
It picks up the argon and mercury.
Picks up.
That's
Right.
what's in
Mercury's the
those
biggest thing.
tubes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the mercury, and it was like every 200 bulbs we had to change out the filter. And those filters were like $12 a piece. Like, so I had to factor all that, and I had to rent this thing, and we ended up filling up like 5 or 6 55-gallon drums full of glass. So like this was like a 3-day project. One guy just sat there all day feeding. Right now, all other times we take ours. We can drop ours off. It costs us $2 a bulb. So we basically have a 55-gallon drum, a plastic drum. We fill up as soon as it's full. We take them in. When we get a lot of times when you're cleaning out commercial properties, you'll get cardboard boxes that have them in them because right when they put new ones in, they exchange them. And I'll fill up. I always keep those cardboard boxes because it makes it safer to transport. The other thing you can do is another best practice. Blanket, also tape. So you'll tape them. Yeah. So get them like 6 to 8 or 12, whatever gives you like an octagon or a hexagon, because hexagons are the best hexagons. Like a hexagon, and you tape them together, and they're a lot more stable. And then wrap them in a blanket. Again, like it's extra handling, no doubt. We charge normally $4 a bulb. Like if it's someone's basement, they have 2 or 3, I'm not concerned. If it's a commercial property, I charge anywhere between $2 and $4 a bulb extra because they're not going to find a better resource, right? So at the end of the day, like it's the responsibility of the junk removal company to do what's environmentally right. And if there's a cost associated with it, then pay the price. It's no different than TVs. I was paying at one point 40 cents a pound for TVs. That Minnesota
$15
site, it was 40 cents a pound, right? That's $40 for a heavy ass 100-pound TV. Like that shit adds up.
Yeah,
and it sucked. And so we charge $25 per tube TV every time. And again, that gets passed on to the customer. And again, we call it a recycling fee. So the things that we charge extra for are tube TVs, so CRTs, tires, and fluorescent bulbs. And we basically, I take what my cost is, multiply it by 2. Because not only do I have to pay for it, I have to transport. It means I have to store it, ship it.
to handle it.
And I have to handle it. I have to take it off the truck. Right. In your guys' case, if you don't have a storage unit or a yard yet, like that's maybe a whole other trip. You might have to go to the scrap yard to drop off one. Right. And you need to get, here's the deal. You need to get compensated for that. It's not your fault, right? If we want to assign responsibility, right? Or I tell customers all the time, like, hey, I'll put your TV in the back of your car and you can drive it over here and drop it off for free. If they're e-waste events or things like that. And often they're like, dude, I'd rather just pay you the $25. Cool. And for us, we also do e-waste events. We don't charge for anything except for tube TVs. We charge for printers because they're mostly plastic and it's a loss leader. It was like for $10 a printer, it's not even worth it. So we charge $25 per tube TV. Everything else we take for free. Some things are worth 2 cents a pound, while laptops are worth like $2 a pound. And so printers, we lose money. It's like negative 4 cents a pound. It used to be. Now it's 0 because we have enough volume.
I did want to just touch one thing on that video.
A lot of coffee.
Right, before I forget. So y'all know that Andy and I did a really big job for McDonald's a couple years back, right?
Yeah.
Well,
that thing was an entire recycling, not just nightmare, but it was a recycling job. That's the main reason they wanted us to go and recycle all this shit. Now, I don't know everything leading up to the actual, hey, we're going to use this company, Green Up Solutions, but I guarantee they did a little bit of research, and if they didn't, then it's on them. But most companies, especially bigger ones, they have whoever's in charge of that, hey, find a contractor or find a person, they're going to look you up and they're going to research you. Now, we live at, like I said before, we live in an age where it's all social media. Everybody, when I hire someone, like if I'm interviewing them and I like them, I'm going to immediately go after they leave on their Facebook, on their Instagram. Yep. I want to see if am I hiring a shithead or am I hiring a responsible person who's not a racist, belligerent, whoever, right? I want to make sure I know who I'm hiring. Same thing goes for businesses. They're going to look that up. And if they see something, let's just put it in hypothetical perspective here. They see a video of you smashing the fuck out of a TV, a tube TV. Maybe they're hiring you because they need you to recycle shit in a responsible manner so they get a good rebate in taxes that next year, or B, they can tell themselves that they did something in a green way. They're going to skip over you.
Gotcha.
It doesn't matter the reason. I get why you did it. I don't give a shit. I'm like, yeah, it causes reaction, and that's great. But as a business owner and someone who, like Kyle said, hey, I want to do what's right for the environment, you have to now think past the next few weeks and few months. You have to start thinking your business in 2 years. I mean, how many people are getting pictures brought up of them 20 years ago because they painted themselves a different color, and now they're out of their job?
Judy Garland got canceled yesterday. Random.
Well, and I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying why even put yourself in a position to have it happen? And when we do things like that, 9 times out of 10 is because we didn't know better.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I didn't really know it was a big deal. Now I do. So it won't happen again. Cool. And I don't want to sit here and bitch on you and say, oh, yeah, bad. No. But I want you to look at it that way, saying this may affect how we do business with certain companies and people. Right?
Yeah. So that's 2 things so just bringing that to my attention, like, I knew there was some type of something in the tube TVs, but I didn't know it was as bad as it is. Obviously on me from not looking it up. So
you get one breath of that, you're going to know quick.
Exactly. So on top of that, I'm someone that I'm like super against being like canceled or whatever. So I won't go back and delete videos, but now I know for the future to not, to work on that. And then I just want to ask, what were you said 4 or 5 things. What are the things that you charge for? I know you said light bulbs, tube TVs, and additional.
Light bulbs, tube TVs, tires.
Gotcha.
Tires, yeah.
And even tires for us, like, we have to pay more if it's on the rim or off the rim. So it's $3. So like ours, like, we take it to landfill, it's $3 if it's rimless, it's $5 if it's still on the rim.
What about so you guys don't take the rim off and like scrap the alloy rim?
Fuck no. If alloy, I will. Yeah. But most tires I get are shit, like, spare tires and If it's alloy, but I can tell you, it takes like 10 minutes to cut a fucking tire off a rim with the recip saw. Man. Like, there's not like, I remember there was this one, we had to make like 3 cuts, and I remember I timed it. It was like 40 minutes from start to finish to get one alloy rim that was like 15 pounds at 60 cents a pound. And I'm like, fuck it. I also knew I could take it. Here's the deal. I can take one. Here's the deal. I also know that I can take, like, we have one scrapyard. If you take them alloy wheels, they'll take them at no charge. So it's just an even exchange, because they know they got to fuck around, but they got the machine because they do it, right? So they'll take alloy rims, no charge, but steel rim, they'll still charge you because it takes their employee and their, so yeah. And that's the thing. Like, there's when we first started, there was companies.
Had a tire company.
Yeah, you were, but you were humping a hell of a lot more tires than I was, because you're doing a lot of more outdoor shit, and more, I don't know, not say agricultural, but like rural. Yeah, you were doing more rural jobs.
Yeah, if you do a barn clean out, you're going to find those tires from the 50s that have been stowed away for years.
And so with that, I want to ask, okay, so what about paint?
Yep.
2, what about so at our landfill, I'm not sure about your all's, but like pressure treated wood is still able to be dumped, but at like class 3 instead of class 1 or whatever.
Yep. Yeah.
And so they're starting to use tires as like base fill to keep rocks in it, and then they're using gravel roading over top of it. So what is bad about a tire, I guess, in the landfill?
There's nothing wrong with a tire. If it's being used, it's fine. If you want to look up, there's a really good video in Saudi Arabia or Kuwait. They have like millions of tires in the desert. The problem with rubber is if it catches fire, that's the biggest issue, right? It'll get burned off. So the problem with rubber is unless you chew it up, like, it doesn't decompose.
Gotcha.
So the tire itself is not hazardous necessarily. I mean, I can double check this. The challenge is, what do you do? It doesn't decompose, takes up a lot of space. If you think about a tire, right? Landfills are all about weight. How much weight can you get in without taking up space? And so, real quick, like, one of the things I was going to hit on, when we first started junk removal companies, I started looking at other junk removal companies. And state by state, different junk removal companies charge different. Like up in Minnesota, for example, they have a transfer station where you got to charge $25 for every mattress, $50 for every couch, like $75 for every sofa sleeper, on top of the weight. And the reason is because those transfer stations, right? Transfer stations run on capacity. They fill up trailers that go up to the landfill, and then landfills run on weight. So someone has to eat the conversion ratio of weight to landfill, right? If you're dumping a bunch of food product in a transfer station, they fucking love you because food is heavy. right? And it's watery and it's whatever, right? So they'll love it from a weight standpoint. So a lot of companies charge, and their upcharges are based off the rules and regulations in that state. On the flip side, like in California, for example, you get paid. When I had my business in San Diego, we got paid $25 for every tube TV we brought in because the state subsidized because they wanted you to. So there, I didn't upcharge for TVs. I fucking love TVs. I got paid for them. It was like complete reversal. Illinois has subsidies set aside where you can recycle mattresses for free. So this is where it's like, just because I do a certain thing doesn't mean it's the way to go. It is, hey, what's the best for the environment? So you're talking about treated lumber. So for us, yeah, treated and painted lumber goes to a special spot. Well, yeah, because there's class, whatever, different class or different special waste.
Yeah, they make you take it to where MSW gets dumped.
Yeah.
And they chew it up with all the other waste. But fence panels that are not pressure treated or stained or painted, I mean, stained's fine, not painted, I guess. But fence panels like that, they're fine because, you know, and I have a lot of experience in like the lumber and brush just because we did a lot of shit down here. And I was in the lumber business very briefly. But the main reason is because if they can recycle that, so think of it this way. There's a business here called Living Earth. Okay, they'll sell you a seed that'll grow a tree. They also have a service that comes out, maintains that tree, trims it up for you. They also have another service that comes out, cuts the tree down, hauls it away for you. Then that same company will grind it up and sell you that mulch for your garden. That right there is the perfect way to do any kind of business. I have one customer that I'm going to have 5 different services off of one damn product. Mm-hmm. Now, that's why it's so important. They can't mulch painted wood, treated wood, because it's not environmentally friendly. Tires, down here, it's pretty much a monopoly, but there's a tire facility in Midlothian, Texas, in the middle of nowhere. It's huge. They pretty much have the entire North Texas market. Every discount tire, every tire operation goes through them with their old tires. If you have enough of them, like we would have 200, we would get up to 200 tires to call them. They'd come out, they'd send 2 guys, they would load their own truck up, and they would charge me about $1.50 per tire, right? For me, it's worth it because I was charging $15 a tire, and I could just put them in my yard, have them come and pick it up when it's ready. They will mulch it up, shred it up. They make playground road base out of it. You know the playground stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. They make, like you said with the landfills, a lot of landfills actually will take cut up tires, either a discounted rate or free, because that's how they make their next level of dirt for the landfill.
Yep.
So it's all about how you can recycle it. But the fact that you're doing the responsible thing, that's the point. It's going to be different. I didn't personally do paint. I can't stand dealing with paint. In the beginning, I did. There was a municipal hazardous waste collection point that we took, and we got kicked out of there. They banned us because they're like, hey, man, like, this is free for residents, and you have a trailer full of paint. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm a bunch of residents. They're like, yeah, you can't do that.
You're no longer a resident. Yeah.
So I just stopped taking paint. I was like, I'm not going to take paint. Yep. I looked at getting my hazmat license with a company. It's just too expensive.
Yep.
It doesn't make sense for my business model. So I just don't touch paint. Instead, I just tell the customer, you can take care of it this way.
What about, so I wanted to ask about paint too, because paint's not hazardous if it's dry, correct? No matter the type of paint,
so,
it's dry.
Correct. Yeah. So here's the deal about paint. If it's water or latex based paint, I tell people all the same shit. Go your ass over to the dollar store. Go get you the cheap kitty litter, right? Mm-hmm. Put it in there, stir it up. 2-3 days later, once it's hard, it can go curbside trash. Now, when you have oil-based paint, that or stains, that stuff, right? It doesn't harden, and so this is your opportunity is to provide the resources for your clients. So for us, we have of our 4 major counties we service, 2 of them have a program. The counties have a program with Veolia Environmental Services, where they can go 3 days a week and drop off their paint and stains and other chemicals. So we have that right on our website. So the resource is right available on our website. And every time people ask us, we redirect them to that website. And if they're not in those 2 counties, we go and we basically, I spent like a full day researching this. I found every single city we serve, what they do about paints and stains, whether it's like a 1 day a year drop off, whether it's a right once a quarter, whether it's a go to this other place and pay for it. So you can go onto my website, figure out what county you're in, what city you're in, and the information's available. Because now I've cut down on the amount of research necessary for people to figure it out, right? They don't have to go to Google and spend an hour. They can spend 2 minutes on my website and figure it out. The other thing is to
Here it's free, but they charge the city that your license is in.
Correct. So they'll just so and again, and the other thing I do is, we get tons of bins from jobs. We all know that we have basements, we all got garages, whatever. We get bins. So we will go into houses, especially whole house cleanouts. We'll load all the chemicals in the bins and we'll put them in your car for you. So all you have to do is drive to the place and then they'll unload them for you. So it's not like we're putting them in cardboard boxes in case they're leaking, whatever else, right? So now we've provided a solution at no cost to our customer, because we're not going to make money on that anyways. I can take, as a commercial entity, I can drive into the Veolia facility. It's a $250 minimum charge plus weight for me to drive in. And so every time I tell that to people, I'm like, hey, you can pay me another $500. I'll take your chemicals. I don't want to. I have no desire to do that. Yeah.
I did one job where because it was a big job and this was the only pain in the ass part of it, I took motor oil. And it was 300 gallons of it.
See, when we take, that's the thing. We take all the motor oil because we have a heater in our warehouse here that works off of any oil.
Yeah.
Like it works.
Well, I didn't have that. So.
Yeah. Like for us, like oil, right? And also so in the state of Wisconsin, you can transport so many pounds or so much liquid before it becomes hazardous, or not hazardous, but before you start basically you had a hazmat license, right? And your truck has to be under a certain amount of weight. So again, that's the other thing. It's like you might be wanting to do all the best things for somebody and you're going to still jack it up, right? So that's important.
I was stuck with that oil. That was like 3 years before I sold the business. That 300 gallons of oil sat in my yard for about 3 years. And then when I sold the business, obviously there's things I had to do to get ready for the closing. And I saw that big 300-gallon tote, and I was like, son of a bitch. So I had to call Safety Clean.
Yeah.
And they came out, and they're like, hey, this one's going to hurt, but we can do it, today. And I was like, let's go. Bring on the pain. It was almost like $2,300 just to get it sucked out and then to take it away. And, that really sucked, man. But
so
live and learn.
One last question just regarding paint.
Yeah.
Let's say, because Andy talks about having Gaylords a lot. What if let's say you don't get a lot of paint, but you take it and you charge them extra. And what if you had like a giant lined Gaylord that you dumped the paint in and would let it dry out? And then when that was
takes time and effort, man. That's
correct. That's time and effort.
Time and effort. You can technically do that. But if you have the time and effort to do that, cool.
Yeah, you could dump paint on a cardboard and it'll eventually dry, and dump paint on a cardboard and dry, and dump paint on a cardboard and dry.
Got it. But where are you going to put the Gaylord? What if something drops in the paint? I mean, there's so much to be said about that. Because I've looked at the same thing before, man. Like, what if we were to take paint and then make it work? The problem is everybody has fucking paint, and for the most part, it's only a few cans. So I tell them, here's a place you could take it. A lot of times if they're moving, they want to take it away. Or B, leave it for the next guy. Because it's not that big of a deal.
Correct. When we do full house cleanouts or even realtors, I tell them go buy the kitty litter, dry out your paint, right? If we're coming 2-3 days later, we'll take it. As soon as it's hard, we'll take it. So this isn't, especially realtors when it comes to big estates or big cleanouts, they want to do everything they can. So when we leave and the cleaners come in, the photos can be taken and the house can be sold. And there's no funny business. The last thing I'll say about, or actually going back to the wood chips, paint we've beat up here. So wood chips, for example, this is again, regulations are different. I have a 40-yard dumpster in my backyard. I can put all lumber in it. It can be painted, it can be stained, it can be treated, and it can be clean. It can be the only thing it can't be is it can't be like particle board and shit. So I can put like OSB in there and plywood. I can't put like furniture right, because what they use is they chip that up and then that becomes cover at the landfill. So in between the different layers of the landfill, they'll put wood chips that basically suck up and soak up some of the leachate. So, if you get like 10 feet of landfill, it becomes really, really soft. So they'll put in like 2 feet of wood. And so that's why you can put the painted and the treated. It's not going to suck up as good as obviously fresh lumber. However, they're not going to try to turn it into wood chips and stain it and put it in someone's fucking, flower bed. So there, I can mix and match all of it. So all my wood that is real lumber goes in there. And again, this is where research, we've talked about in other episodes. It's like, I don't expect people to say, okay, I'm going to go take 20 items and figure out in one day how to recycle all of them. No, like figure out one, right? You figure out scrap, right? Right. Now we got our scrap process down. We take it to this place. All right, e-waste. Nope. Now we're going to take that here, right? Start with what do you see the most of? That's your biggest headache. And sometimes, like when it comes to paint, for the first 2 years, I did we'll take all the paint from everybody. And then what ended up happening was on Saturday morning, I had like 5 of my guys all load up their cars and go to the Veolia place. And I made sure they didn't have company shirts on. I still got a fucking phone call from Veolia because I already got blacklisted. My mom got blacklisted. My brother got blacklisted. And I got a phone call like Wednesday of the following week, like, hey, was that your guys? Because like you can only have so many dead grandma's basements you cleaned out. And I'm like, all right. And I finally had to say, no, I'm not going to do paint. My realtors to this day are still mad at me for not taking paint. And I tell the same joke every time. I don't take paint, stains, chemicals, spouses, mother-in-laws, children, or pets. And then people laugh, but I'm like, remember that joke I told about your fucking child or your pet? Right? But I also provide them the resources. I don't say no, right? And I could, and I'll be like, yeah, I can, but it's going to be $500. And this is why.
We had a dead horse one time, but we couldn't do it because there's a lot of legalities behind there.
Yeah,
Really?
You can't take dead horses. Yeah.
That's why.
I at least looked into it.
Yeah.
The other thing, you said there's a lot of horse shit removal up in that.
There you go. Yeah. Skid steer to good attitude. The other place we draw the line is if it requires a title. So, for example, we take boats and canoes, kayaks. I'll take like little dirt bikes and motorbikes as soon as there's a title. So if it's a boat, car, motorcycle that has a title, or even a trailer, I don't want to fuck with it. That's where I draw the line again.
I had a guy, all right, and he was awesome. $200. He shows up with a flatbed, legit company. Not he doesn't ask any questions. He's just like, where's it at? What's it look like? Send me a picture. And he shows up, gets it going. A lot of times it happens for, abandoned houses, probate things. I mean, you name it. Junk cars that, I don't know where the title is, blah, blah, blah. But I will say this. The title needs to be for a fuselage or a body, like an actual framed body of a vehicle. You cut that bitch in half into different pieces, it's no longer a vehicle. Same thing with a boat. Mm-hmm. We would get a lot of boats, and we got to the point, obviously, when we had our skid steer, we would just crunch them up, smash them up. But landfills would take them if you cut them in half. Those are no longer a boat. But they'll do that if you don't have a title and if you could do it if it's cut in half. But yeah, I had a guy to take care of vehicles.
Yeah, and I have cut boats in half, and I can tell you, it ain't worth for the $500 or whatever I charge for those boats, all the fucking around. You think, it's fiberglass. I'm gonna cut this thing in half. It'd be no problem.
It's such a pain in the ass.
It's such a pain in the ass.
I did a sailboat. I don't even know if you've seen that video, Andy. Me and Paul, we had a sailboat this guy needed to get rid of, and it was still in the slip on Grapevine Lake. And he's like, I don't have a trailer. It's just been in this slip. I'm tired of paying for it. I want it gone. I was like, cool, no problem. Dude, I got this sailboat in the middle of summer. We found a propane tank because it's a propane troll motor, which is weird. But we got one of those camping propane tanks. That's all we had. Yeah. Screwed it on and it worked. And we're like, sweet, we can do this. We got all the way to the middle of the lake and then it stopped. And we're like, why is it stopping? We didn't know, but it had a 6-foot keel underneath it that hit a sandbar. A keel is what keeps the boat from doing this.
Yeah.
So it was after I dropped Paul off to go get the truck and trailer. So I'm out in the middle of the lake alone, stuck. And this is 100-something degrees outside. There's no cover. It's not like a big grand yacht. And I'm like, this sucks. I'm going to have to swim. We're going to figure this shit out. Finally, I got the cable loose, and I raised the keel We got it loaded up, took it to my yard. That bitch sat there for a few weeks. Finally, I was like, no one's going to buy this bitch, but that keel is probably lit. So we tore it up, took that keel that was like 800 pounds, scrapped it, and then we sold the boat trailer that the guy had gave us. It was a piece of shit. No license plate, no registration, but we weren't going far. You know what I mean? So sometimes you do have to get creative. But yeah, boats are a son of a bitch.
So just with that, because you mentioned propane, do you all take propane tanks? If so, what's the best? Because we haven't taken, we took in a couple, just took them locally when like we just went like acted as if we weren't in business or whatever, but we haven't had a large quantity.
Air gas is my favorite vendor. If there's like 5 or 6 tanks, I'll take them, and I call Air Gas, and then I can drop them off, and they keep them.
Yep. No, same thing. So we take all the no. So your standard propane tank on a grill, same thing. We take them. If they got a little bit of juice in them, we hook them up to our propane heaters over the winter. Once they're dried out, I go turn them into air gas. I can take all of them. If air gas, like so by us, their air gas has a dumpster where just like, hey, you can drop off propane tanks. Like it's not like it's inside their yard, so you have to go like during normal business hours. It's not. I mean, it's like a 4-yarder, whatever. And they'll take them if there's a puncture, if they got the top off, doesn't matter. You can't take the big ones. So like the forklift ones and things like that. If I encounter those, I avoid taking those. We also get helium tanks from time to time, and we have a place. We have a scrapyard that'll take helium tanks. So it's all about like, we'll take them. Yep, no questions asked because they just
drill a hole.
As long as as long as the helium tanks as long as they're properly labeled, they'll take them.
Yeah.
The biggest issue we have, and you all don't have that down there, but is we get fuel tanks for heat. So people get like a 500-gallon oil tank in their basement, and they're like, oh yeah, someone put a hole in it years ago. There's no more oil in it. We have to cut those in half or puncture a hole on the top, basically on all 4 sides to show that there's no oil in it. Almost every time we've pulled one of those out of a house, there's still oil in it because they'll put like because it's just residual, and then now you got like we had one recently where dripped oil through the fucking house, and like we cleaned it up, but like this was like $1 million house, old historic property. We got the oil tank out, smelled like oil. Like our president went there the next day to like look at the damage to the wood. He's like, dude, I walked in and smelled like oil. Like that sucked. And the homeowners were super cool about it. And again, it was like, I don't like taking oil tanks in basements. I tell them, hey, you get it cut in half. Again, my father taught me this years and years ago. It's like some of the best money you can make is the money you don't lose by taking the jobs on you can't do. And it's like, yep.
That's exactly, and that's why I've said it. You know, you've probably heard it say sometimes, but one of the best skills to have as a business owner is the ability to say no.
Yep.
And sometimes it sucks, but look the ladder, right?
And that's the whole point of this. The whole point of this podcast is I started as chucking a truck. I talk about this in my book. I started by saying yes to everything and figuring out a way to do it. And eventually I realized, hey, there's some things that the risk ain't worth the reward, or I lose money straight up. Like one of our favorite stories is like our second month in business. My brother took down a 75-foot radio antenna on the side of the house. And it went exactly not to plan. Like the guide wires pulled it down. He almost fell, like all this shit. And it fell perfectly like in the right direction. Like 2 years ago, I got a phone call, same situation. They're like, oh yeah, but you took that one down 5 years ago. And I'm like, yeah. And I learned from that, that's not a good idea. And they looked at me like I had a dick in my forehead. I was like, no, I'm never doing that again. Like I did it enough to not do it. And now if someone's like, how do you do this? I'm like, I can tell you how to do it. Do not sue me, because I can tell you how it worked for us one time. And that's it. Like my plan originally was to get a bucket truck. Problem with a bucket truck is it only goes up to like 35 feet. This thing was 75 feet tall. So my plan went to shit as soon as the bucket truck didn't reach the height I needed it to reach, because I didn't do enough research to be like, how high up does a bucket truck get? And again, that was my parents' neighbor across the street who I knew had a bucket truck. Like I was just like, oh yeah, I'll say yes and figure it out later. That job also, we did that job for $500. My dad spent $487 on safety equipment for my brother.
And
so
I remember you returned
it.
Yeah.
100% I returned it. Like 15% restocking fee or whatever, done. Yeah, 100%. I'm still from the old school. Like I still know how to make a buck. And now I don't take down radio antennas. So again, like as much as we might be beating you guys up or having this conversation on the podcast. It's like, I've done all the dumb shit. Like, I don't want to see y'all get hurt. I don't want to see y'all lose your business. I don't want to see y'all get fucking sued. Like, you guys seem like legit guys. Like, I watch your videos. Like, you're out there, you're doing the thing. That's awesome. I'm all about independent, right? The very first episode we had is, this is, junk removal is a franchise, or not, how do I say this? You don't need to be in a fucking franchise to be successful in junk removal. And you prove that. You're like, hey, we're going to figure it out ourselves. We're going to borrow this truck to go pick up a trailer, rent U-Hauls, spend $120 on a logo, create content with the phones we have in our hands, and we're going to figure it out. Versus spend $50,000, mortgage your house, lose your ass. And the reason I'm so strong about it was because I got another phone call yesterday, middle of the day, from a guy who needs to get out of his franchise obligation he's with our former business partners because he got fucked on the deal, and the $2,000 a month is way too expensive, and the $40,000 he spent, he's out the money. And the whole time he thought, oh, I could call these people and they got my back, and they don't. And yet with you guys, it's like you guys got each other's back, and the rest of the world doesn't give a shit about you, and it's up to you to figure it out. So if you get a couple lucky breaks that someone let you borrow a truck, or that a customer hired you sight unseen, or that U-Haul had the right truck at the right time, and U-Haul fucking hates it when junk removal companies borrow their trucks and you bring them back trashed, right? Like, you might get blacklisted. I know junk removal companies that got blacklisted from renting U-Haul trucks because they trashed them, right? So it's like all those things that had to line up for you to be successful, and at the end of the day, it still was up to you to make it happen, and you weren't relying on other people. Like, that's why I want you guys to go out and succeed. I want you to get to that point where you have those box trucks with your badass bull wrapped on the side of it. And you're talking about the level of professionalism within junk removal. Because as we raise the level of professionalism within junk removal, we'll get more recognition and we can charge more for our services. That's the whole point here. Be recognized and respected within the waste industry. Because I've been going to waste expos for a couple of years now, and a lot of people are like, oh, you're just a non-CDL, junk removal company, right? And now it's like, oh no, you guys are white glove. You guys go in the house. You guys do the shit that we don't want to do. And so we got to lean in on our strengths and lean in on our professionalism so that we can grow the industry overall. That's the point behind the podcast.
Yeah, and I don't feel like, the people that think they have it all figured out and aren't willing to learn or accept criticism and, move forward from that are the people that are going to stay stuck or fail. And so all the advice, that's why it's like I'm asking questions, I'm 100% trying to, or not trying, because that's a word. Words fucking matter. Trying is a terrible word. I am working on, building the business properly, and we want to, as a company, be the best source for that and be able to use our reasonings, for recycling to help us get those jobs that we are environmentally friendly and doing the right thing.
Yeah, no, yeah. I love, and the thing is, I love the fact that like you're doing shit that I never did, right? By posting things constantly, like here, I should have never. I did it, but I did it like, oh, here's a picture, a little description of the scrapyard, and I wasn't consistent, and I didn't build this following, And so I look at you guys, right? I was told early in my career, for every mentor you have that's 10 years older, find a mentor that's 10 years younger. And so I see you guys, a lot of maybe the older guys, oh, I can't believe they're doing this shit. Or like we see it in the fucking Facebook groups. There's different guys in different areas that have this piss and match about how to do junk removal the best. And everyone thinks they're the fucking, no, it's like, hey, this is our flavor. This is our brand. This is how we do it. And this is what works best for us. Like for me, this is like Camel Crew junk removal is what works best for me. I lean in on what I got. Like, I naturally do not say like I'm gonna go create a bunch of content, and I didn't grow up on social media, right? You guys lean on that shit.
When we talked about truck versus trailer, and I told you what worked best for me was trailers behind a pickup. That was what's best for my business at the time. Andy rolls with box trucks. That's what's best for his business. So I tell people my take on what I've done. And just the same, Andy does the same. We turned down a possible sponsorship for the podcast because there was a software platform that wanted to be a sponsor, but they didn't want us to mention any other software platforms. And both of us were like, dude, we don't have experience with you where we have experience with others. So that would not be in line with our values, right? That doesn't work for our model.
We've also had guests. We've also had guests that reached out to us that wanted to be on the podcast and said, cool. But these are things you can't say or can't ask. And instantly like, Cool. No, you can't be a guest. Like every guest we've had on is like, I don't give a shit what you ask about, you talk about, right? Like they'll lean in. So, and that's what it's all about. Like this world's all about transparency. That the corporate legalese doesn't fit in. And because junk removal is a newer industry, we get to set the standard and set the precedence. And for the people that have been doing it, I mean, newer industry because it's doubled in the last 10 years. And up until the late 90s, it wasn't even considered by the SBA to be a sub-segment. Like it wasn't even a, it's like, oh, they do that, but it's like it's not its own business. So because we have this industry now, it's up to us to define what are going to be the standards. I love it when people talk about where the items go more than hauling them, right? There's a lot of people out there creating content like, oh, look at all this shit we picked up. Look how much money we made. Like that doesn't excite me. What excites me is like, okay, how much of it did you keep out of the landfill? What strategies, what techniques, what relationships did you utilize? That's interesting to me because then we look like more like frontline recyclers, less like, chucking a truck, running around, picking up, Sanford and Son style trash.
Gotcha. I had a question.
Yeah, please.
We found out the hard way doing a job and, shopping carts. We didn't know that scrap
can't take it to the scrapyard. Yeah, unless you got a letter.
We ground it up into pieces like Casey said. When you take the cart, it's not gone no more. So that was the only way we could get rid of it. Never since it's like we can't take the shopping carts.
So this is what you can. So this is what you can do though. This is what you can do. So I've taken shopping carts. So what you need is so we've taken shopping carts. We got hired by Walgreens corporate to pick up a bunch of broken shopping carts. So it was like 20 shopping carts. So we had a letter from the letterhead at Walgreens that and a manager signed and a signature and a Walgreens email address that they could contact. I went to the scrapyard. I was like, hey, like here's our proof that we can legally take these. And they're like, oh yeah, that's fine. That's good. Because what happens is if those ever get reported stolen, they're going to go back to that letter and come after me or come after Walgreens because they just need a chain of custody because scrappers grab shopping carts out of fucking Jewel Osco and what do y'all got pubics down there? Fucking take them and just push them in the scrapyard and
same thing with AC units.
Yeah, or catalytic converters.
Company, and I use their license. So whenever I recycle AC units, I would say my name under their company. And then they allowed me to scrap the radiator parts, like the big units, They allowed me to scrap those because down here that shit's regulated, and they will say you need to have a license. You need to be a licensed HVAC company or have that exact license that they carry. Which it's hard to go get that license if you're not using it all the time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But partnering up with a local company and say, hey, do you mind if I scrap on your behalf? Sometimes they'll be like, yeah, sure, or give me $10 per thing, whatever.
Yeah, and it's the same reason why we don't process e-waste here. People have asked me that for years. I looked into it like 7-8 years ago. To get R2 certified is $30,000. I'm like, yeah, no. Like, and for a while I was taking apart computers, and I took apart. It was one winter. I took apart like 75 computers. I couldn't tell you the difference from one motherboard to the next, and I didn't fucking care. And
there's 3.
Yeah, I didn't give a shit. So it was more interesting to me to partner with the e-waste company. So I also took apart mattresses. We ran a test. 2 days. We had 3 guys taking apart mattresses to see if it was cost. What would the cost benefit of it? They hated doing it. We sucked at doing it. Like there was no point. So it's like there's a lot of things I've just backed out. Where you know what? I'm just gonna ship it. I'm gonna sort it, store it, ship it. Most things that's what we do. Scrap is probably the only thing that we actually. That's the only thing we really process, and we're really not even processing it because we're not smelting it. We're not using anything other than hand tools.
I did a less process than you do, Andy, in my scrap.
Yeah.
Just based on my room and space and
you just sort it. Yeah,
labor,
sort of the basics. Yeah. So that's the thing. Like sometimes you got to cross the line to find where the line was. It's better to cross the line and find it than play it safe and never figure it out. Same with wood. Like we're still talking to this day about getting a fucking wood chipper. Right? Like,
don't do it.
I know exactly. I like Casey literally got into business. Remember, like Casey was all about this wood chipping business. Got into it, and it was like called me one day. He's like, "Then I'm out." He's like, "Fuck that! I don't want to do it no more." I'm like, "All right, bet." Right? And he handed it off to somebody else.
I got my money. I was profitable, and then the getting stopped getting good. So I was like, "Yeah, I'm done." The basic wood grinder I was looking at, I was gonna take a fat loan out for it. It was
Yeah.
like $380,000.
Yep.
And I
Holy
talked to a lot of people that had them, these big outfits.
Roto
And they
chopper.
were like, hey,
Yeah.
yeah. And they were like, those are great machines, but they need to stay running or they will shit on you.
Yep.
And I was like, really? He goes, dude, if that's not running 20 hours a day, then
Yep.
don't buy it. And I was like,
Yep.
shit, I was only going to need it 2 hours a week.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And you
Also, the teeth on those things, it's like $1,000 every other week to get the teeth replaced or sharpened. It was, I mean, just astronomical. But and again, that's where skill comes in. So I was looking to see. I wanted to have a roto chopper where I could throw pianos in it and it would chew it up and then pull the metal. Like I already had a spot in my yard. I already had the whatever. I was all excited about it. All right,
remember
Casey's
that lumber
got
I got delivered to Chicago?
Yeah, I was there with you.
And it was like 60% wet.
Yeah, it was nasty. Actually, you know what? Had I never, I would have never met my girlfriend if we didn't have that meeting. So the meeting went to shit.
True.
The burgers were delicious. No, seriously, Casey called me. He's like, "Hey, I got this meeting in Chicago. I have no idea what I'm doing." I was like, "Cool." It's like 90 minutes from me. I had a flight that afternoon out of Chicago because I was doing this antimicrobial business at the time. And I was like, "Yeah, dude, I'll just come down early." We went to this. Can't remember, it was a burger place, but like they had like bison burgers, ostrich burgers, all the different things. We had badass burgers. Then we met this guy at O'Hare Valet, which is like the fucking car park place where the wood was stored. And my lady friend swiped at me on the Bumble. The rest is history. I still park my car there at O'Hare Valet. If I don't park at her house, so there we go. We can blame Casey Bubba Lawrence wood business for my or not blame, assign responsibility for my relationship.
So I do have two quick questions that are
fine. Casey top takeaway before you leave, and then we'll keep chatting. Top takeaway, Casey, before you chat.
Hey, top takeaway: always be responsible in the public eye. Right? Everything you do today matters in years to come. At the same time, market in all facets, because that's the best, most successful, consistent way to grow. And the last thing, stay consistent with your marketing, which is pretty much what I just said. Consistency is key.
Yep.
Sure. That's a fact, man. Thank you for that.
All right. We'll catch you next week, Case. Actually, I still owe you a phone call. I told Casey yesterday at like 9 o'clock in the morning to call him right back. I did not.
Yeah.
Oh, shame on you.
I have to grab lunch. I have a 1:30, but then after that, I'll text you and you can call me.
You have to. You get lunch.
It was definitely a pleasure, Casey. Thank you.
I have to get fucking lunch. Like, I need lunch. All right.
Hey, Case, awesome takeaway. If you want to find out more about these two great cats and myself, we got another episode, part 2, The Deuce, episode 75, coming up next week.